as I mentioned in the previous video, if you were curious what happened at Saturday Night's Main Event, I was going to go back and do a Saturday Night's Main Event recap show for one reason and one reason only, and that is, it is the final Saturday Night's Main Event on the docket. As you can tell from the last time you saw me, I've done a week of television. I went to WWF Metal, as WWF Metal is one of my B shows, and All American, and I just sold out the Kiel Auditorium for this past week's episode of Raw. If you want to see what happened on Raw, here's a quick scroll through. But, as I mentioned, this is the focus of this video is Saturday Night's Main Event and the end of an era. The best way to start is to go back to 1991 and just look through, well, basically go back to the start. I actually don't have any Saturday Night's Main Events this year. Yeah. Okay, I take it back. Maybe 1992? Yep. Wait. Point is, if you go back, I can do it another way. If you go back to first week in March. Yeah, the first week in March. That's the first episode of WWF Metal. Because I noticed that the roster was ever expanding, and because the roster was ever expanding, I needed some more, I needed more programming for the talent to be promoted on. And in some cases, it has helped. It has helped guys like, well, for lack of a better word, it's helped people it's helped more people get promoted. By that I mean it's helped feuds get more feuds that may not have been the focus of Raw, or talent that might not have been focused on Raw, get the focus. Because, number one, just this show in particular, Tracy Smothers wasn't going to get a focus on Raw. This allowed me to break down the multi-man feud between Raven's crew and the Rock and Roll Express to give each person a little bit of time to promote their feuds. And also, just pointing out, another thing is Shane Shamrock, who is now the Irish Iron Man, and actually fought on Raw a few weeks after competing on, for a few weeks after competing on Metal, or, getting the start of his push on Metal. And the tournament that I mentioned earlier in an earlier video also was the main focus on the early days of WWF Metal, to give Metal a different feel than All American or Raw. Metal is the home of the new talent, of the fresh stars. And one of the reasons why I brought in WWF Metal is because All American's broadcasting contract is coming up, and I'm not going to renew it. The same thing happened with Saturday Night's Main Event. Saturday Night's Main Event's contract, as everybody knows, Saturday Night's Main Event was a free TV special. It was not a pay-per-view. But going into Saturday Night's Main Event, the broadcasting deal with the television company expired, or was set to expire, and actually expired ahead of the show. That's why you see the pay-per-view providers and the pay-per-view buy rate that you see. And I knew ahead of time that this was going to be the last Saturday Night's main event, because I am moving more towards pay-per-view and less towards not having a pay-per-view or having a Saturday Night's main event instead. Because that was actually the point of me going back and showing you the previous shows, that I was going to show you that there was a time when I didn't have a pay-per-view in July, or I believe September, to allow for more time in between King of the Ring and SummerSlam, and I believe it was usually Bad Blood in October, to promote the feuds and give, buffer time to develop new feuds, to develop new ideas, to develop new stuff, as opposed to having to go month to month, Because having Saturday Night's main event allowed me to basically have lesser shows in between the bigger shows and still get a big show feel, like in between WrestleMania and Royal Rumble, or in between SummerSlam and Survivor Series, or whatever. But with philosophies changing and things changing, I thought it was time to do away with the Saturday Night main event concept and move on. That's why Saturday Night's main event, that's why this is the last Saturday Night's main event for the foreseeable future. Art Barr and Eddie Guerrero's feud came to a head. Art Barr claimed that Eddie Guerrero promised him years ago that Eddie would get Art Barr into the WWF, or vice versa, if either one of them made it big. And Eddie did not live up to his side of the bargain. Demi Malenko and Medusa beat Jaguar Yokota and Candy Divine. The women's division, without a title, just has a special attraction match. It is, a little confusing, I guess, that I'm spending a little bit more time with the women now that they don't have a title than I did when they did have a title. But that's just me. That just might be me. Oliver Humperdinck. The only reason why I'm giving them still space as an attraction match is because a lot of the women are signed to written contracts and still have a long period of time left on those contracts that it would cost too much to fire them, so I'm just going to keep them around and use them as needed in roles like this. As I mentioned earlier, Andre the Giant managed Public Enemy to even the odds against Yokozuna Tama and Oliver Humperdinck, and Andre was the special manager, or the special cornerman, for the Public Enemy at this show. And this was Andre's second to last appearance for the company, his last appearance, of course, being the night after, managing Rocco Rock against Brian Clark. Shawn Michaels and Jeff Jarrett, their feud came to a head. Jeff was jealous of Shawn being a movie star, and didn't think that the red carpet should be rolled out for Shawn Michaels. They had a match at WrestleMania. Shawn Michaels won via disqualification after Jimmy Hart interfered, and this was the rivalry come to a head. You get promo time for Owen Hart, who is hyping up his world title match against Ric Flair. Owen defeated Ricky Steamboat at WrestleMania to get this title shot, because he did have a point that he won against Ricky Steamboat. Bret Hart lost to Ric Flair, so why should Bret Hart get the title shot if he lost? Bob Orton is interviewed about his match with Ricky Steamboat, which his match with Ricky Steamboat had to be cut in half due to time limitations. But either way, the point of the match was still Ricky Steamboat getting the victory. Gary Hart hypes up the Four Corners elimination match for the tag team titles later tonight, hyping up his tag team, Ahmed Johnson and Diesel. Dirty White Boy wins the tournament to get a contract with the WWF, defeating Mongo. Hollywood Blondes share their thoughts on the Four Corners match. And the Rock and Roll Express become the new WWF Tag Team Champions for the third time, I believe. I'll look to make sure, but I believe it was I believe at this point they are 3-time Tag Team Champions. The Honky Tonk Man gets to fight Brian Lee for the Intercontinental title as Brian Lee's first challenger. Our first title defense is against the greatest Intercontinental Champion of all time, the Honky Tonk Man. And much to the chagrin of Brian Lee, as mentioned on the previously episode of Raw, the Harris brothers interfere and stop the match and cost Brian Lee the match, even though he felt like he didn't need him. Vader now talks about his upcoming match with the Chris Candido, which, as you might remember, did not happen. Papa Shango against Rob Van Dam, and Raven causes a distraction, allowing Papa Shango to get the victory. Sonny hypes up Candido versus Vader, and then we move to the casket match, The Undertaker versus Too Cold Scorpio. Since last December, The Undertaker has been feuding with undercard guys, quote-unquote, to try and get them more over. In the fall of last year, he was feuding with Mikey Whipwreck, and the feud with Mikey Whipwreck actually went from, I believe, November till WrestleMania. I can give that a glance. I'm not sure, though. Or, no, I take that back. Mikey Whipwreck versus The Undertaker went to the Royal Rumble, I think. I honestly don't remember. I think it was either Royal Rumble or In Your House. I don't remember. And because from what I remember, Scorpio fought The Undertaker at WrestleMania. But either way, it didn't help Mikey Whipwreck, but it did help Scorpio, who is now a main eventer. But now Scorpio is going to will disappear for a couple weeks, or maybe a month. We'll see what happens, because the same thing happened to The Undertaker after his casket match last year against Bret Hart, and Vader when he fought The Undertaker in a casket match. Or no, Vader disappeared after his match with Hulk Hogan. So, but either way, same thing happened to Undertaker when he lost to Bret Hart last September, and the same thing's going to happen to Scorpio this time around. He will be gone for a couple months. Candido does not actually end up fighting Vader, as Candido and the Harris brothers jump Vader before the match, causing the match to get thrown out, and things to intensify a little bit, which explains the promo the following night on Raw, where Vader challenges one of the Harris brothers and Candido. And now we move to the main event, one of the top matches thus far in the 5 years since I started the season. Owen Hart gets his first WWF title opportunity against Ric Flair, with Bret Hart as the special referee, and Ric Flair retains the title in his first successful title defense. And then Bret and Owen face off after the match. Bret and Owen have been going back and forth since last fall. Specifically, they've been going back and forth since last fall, but the conversation has been it's been one of the top conversations in the WWF since the week after WrestleMania, because Owen has shown jealousy to his brother, who won the world title the same night Owen won his first singles championship in the WWF. Owen won the Intercontinental title the same night Bret won his first world title at WrestleMania, and jealousy from there has never gone away. But the seeds are planted, and it's all ready to go. Eventually, brother versus brother, Bret versus Owen, will happen. As I mentioned earlier, though, Saturday night's main event, the final Saturday night's main event, is the only Saturday night's main event in the top 10 of my top 100 events in the last 5 years. Ric Flair versus Owen Hart, is number 7. This also gives a glimpse back on or speaking of Bret Hart's first title victory, this is the match that he won his title. This is the match. He won the world title at WrestleMania in a triple threat against Ric Flair and Steamboat, and it was the top match, or top rated match, in the history of this season. WrestleMania last year is one of the top events of all time. And Saturday Night's Main Event, one of the top buys for a pay-per-view. But my point is, as I mentioned in the other videos, Saturday Night's Main Event is a concept from a bygone era. It worked back in the day. It was a great idea when WWE was trying to make an impact, but now a pay-per-view would suffice just as much. And you don't really need a free TV event to get more viewers. That's what the weekly television is for. And that's why I chose to do away with Saturday Night's Main Event, because much like what WCW did away with Clash of Champions, I'm doing away with Saturday Night's Main Event because it's time for a change. And that's why this year I have Night of Legends for the first time, Unforgiven for the first time, July pay-per-view for the first time, Capital Carnage for the first time, No Mercy for the first time, replacing Bad Blood, and for the first time, In Your House will be an individual pay-per-view with, well, actually, not for the first time. Next year, I should say, No Way Out will run for the first time, and Fully Loaded will run for the first time. Fully Loaded, of course, is in place of last month's pay-per-view, Saturday Night's Main Event. So, point is, the pay-per-view calendar is changing, and as we move to an era of attitude and an era of more aggression, we need to change the concepts that may not fit a new personality for the WWF. A more in-your-face personality. And in that case, that's why we do away with Saturday Night's Main Event. But in my opinion, I don't think I could have done a better last Saturday Night's Main Event. Now, I know that WWE eventually did bring back Saturday Night's Main Event. I do believe that in real life, the last Saturday Night's Main Event was in like 1991, 1992, and then the show came back in 2006. I'm not saying I won't do that, but right now, Saturday Night's Main Event will be a historical piece as opposed to a current card or a current event. So with that being said, let me know down in the comment section below what you think of this type of video. Just doing a recap video and an inside TEW type thing. Speaking of that, here are some of the feuds going on right now, so you know when we come back next week with the next episode of the transition from New Generation to Attitude. El Gigante just joined the WWF the week after, or a couple days after, the Raw that I just recorded, and will be going into a feud with Yokozuna. I know some people might be thinking, what the heck? El Gigante, wow, that's gonna be a terrible match. Yeah, but at least it gives Yokozuna something to do. Rock and Roll Express and Gary Hart, as I mentioned earlier, Hollywood Blondes, and the long-term storyline with the Hollywood Blondes. See, this is a good point. That was the initial idea for the feud, but I changed my mind, and I'm not going that way. Bret Hart and Ric Flair, this will be going until Night of Legends. Ricky Steamboat is revisiting his feud with Owen Hart. Rob Van Dam and the Unabomb, or Rob Van Dam and Raven now, Mark Merrow and Shane Douglas, and The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels. It seems like now Undertaker has his eyes set on the Heartbreak Kid. Either way, this was a little taste of, I guess, in a way, a recap show, but also an inside TEW for you to see a different side of this season that I have been pushing for the last couple months. So let me know down in the comments. Again, let me know down in the comment section below if you like this type of video. If you do and you want to see more, I will put together more pay-per-view, more recap or post pay-per-view recap shows outside of the main series. I may try this again anyway. We'll see what happens after Night of Legends in 2 weeks. But with that being said, feel free to leave a like, subscribe to the channel for more content just like this that you can only find right here at Wrestling Express. And before you go, do not forget to ding dong that notification bell to always know when a new video is up on the channel, because you just never know when I'm going to put one up. Till next time. Later.